Couple days ago, I did 7 NBA players that I guaranteed will be traded. I don't think it's going to play too much into this video because that video was definitely a bit more what I think will happen, while this one is definitely a bit more opinionated. If you're new to my channel and this is the first video you see, I hope you enjoy. But if you're not new, you've seen my channel, you've seen my videos before, and you've enjoyed them, I hope you consider subscribing. Without further ado, let's look at these tiers. At the top, we have the teams that I believe should buy. Maybe they're not at that championship contending level right now, but if they add a big piece, they can get to that level. Add a piece or two is when you're basically at the championship contending level. You think you can make a push for the NBA Finals, but maybe you're missing one or two pieces off the bench that can really get you to that level. Ride the ship could be a really good team, or maybe even a really bad team. Just a team I don't think should make any too big deals at the deadline because they're kind of cool where they are right now. Field offers is when you have a player that maybe you're not 100% sure you should sell him, but if the right deal does come around, you should make it. And then sell is when you have a player on the top of your roster, solid player, but if you're able to trade him for good value, you should 100% sell him. And starting off, we have an interesting team here in the Denver Nuggets. I could definitely see the Nuggets add a piece or two at this year's trade deadline. I think they're definitely missing a bit of shot creation and scoring off the bench right now. You have solid players like Julian Strawther, Ayton Watson, but you're really missing that one scorer off the bench, or maybe even another big man, because obviously Zeke Naji and DeAndre Jordan are not going to get the job done. I'd like to see them potentially add a backup center, or add another scorer off the bench, potentially get them to the level we know they can be at. The Orlando Magic are up next, and I think I'm going to throw them into that buy tier. There's one guy, that one point guard over there in Sacramento that I think would fit perfectly for the Orlando Magic. I'm going to make a De'Aaron Fox video. I think you guys are going to see it maybe even tomorrow. But I think De'Aaron Fox to the Orlando Magic would be the best fit. The Magic are one of the worst offensive teams. They're missing that can really run that offense. And I think that De'Aaron Fox can be that guy. They do have the assets to potentially move or make a move for De'Aaron Fox in Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony. You have some players that are making solid amounts of money to go match that De'Aaron Fox contract. So if the Magic were able to make a move at this year's deadline, I hope it is for De'Aaron Fox. The Raptors are definitely going to be sellers at the deadline. We've seen Bruce Brown rumors, we've seen Jakob Poeltl rumors, Chris Boucher rumors. Whatever's going to happen, they're most likely going to make a trade, get off some of their money, get some more draft picks in return. The Warriors are really interesting, and obviously everything is surrounding around Steph Curry, whether or not they're going to make that push for a championship, get another guy. I think they should make that trade. I think they should make the trade, whether that's moving Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, whatever it is. I think you need another guy next to Steph Curry. We thought that this could potentially just be the Steph Curry show, but he has not been amazing this season. He's also not playing a lot this season. If they do get another guy, make that playoff push, I think it would be good with Steph Curry in his career. Shows that the Warriors are really trying to build around him and willing to make one more push to get another championship. The Rockets are a team that I think should really just ride the ship right now. I don't think they should make a De'Aaron Fox trade. I know they do have the assets to get him. You have Reed Shepherd, you have Fred VanVleet, but I really like the continuity of this team right now. They are missing that 1A score, but I think that's definitely something they should look at in the offseason. Next up is the Utah Jazz. I think they're a team that should definitely sell at the deadline. You have guys like Colin Sexton, Walker Kessler, Jordan Clarkson that should all be able to have some value on the market. Sexton and Kessler specifically, I think they could potentially go for a first round pick. Jordan Clarkson, just not a guy they want on their team right now. Not efficient, gets hurt, doesn't even really play. I don't think Will Hardy in this front office has done an amazing job so far with this rebuild, but I think making these trades will definitely help accelerate it. You have contracts like PJ Tucker, Terrence Mann that can maybe amount to Cam Johnson. I would love to see this Clippers team add Cam Johnson, put him at maybe 3, have Harden, Norman Powell, Cam Johnson, Kawhi Leonard, and Ivica Zubac with the defensive abilities of Derrick Jones Jr. off the bench. I really like that lineup for the LA Clippers. Next up, we have the Boston Celtics. I think they're definitely a team I could throw in at a piece or two. They're missing another wing three-point shooter / defender off the bench. I've heard Javonte Green could be potentially available for them. If that is the case, I think it would be a great trade for them. They haven't been amazing this season so far. They're shooting a lot of threes. They're not making them. But I think if they do add another defensive presence off the bench, it could help them a lot. The Lakers might be also a team I'll throw in at a piece or two. They haven't been terrible this season. A lot of people were confused about the JJ Redick hire. Honestly, I was too, but he has not been a bad coach so far this season. The reason I'm not throwing them right into buys is because I don't think they can consolidate some of their pieces for a big name. Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt all have the contracts to potentially get you somewhere, but I don't know if trading 3 of those guys to get a big name is going to get this team any better. So maybe look to trade for a guy like Valanciunas on maybe a smaller contract. Walker Kessler, I don't believe, has gotten his extension yet, just to add another piece, add another big man to what Anthony Davis and LeBron James want. The Pacers are also a team I believe should buy. I don't think this current iteration of the roster right now can push for a championship, but if they trade for someone like Cam Johnson, they trade for someone like Brandon Ingram to really put at that wing position, I believe it could be the last connecting piece for that team. The Mavericks are definitely a team that needs to add a piece or two. They don't have a backup big man right now with Derek Lively being out for potentially the rest of the season. Daniel Gafford obviously moved into that starting spot. Then Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, they just don't get the job done right now. You need something better. They need to find something. They could definitely add a piece or two, especially in the big man compartment. The Phoenix Suns are interesting. They did make a good trade for Nick Richards earlier this season. He's been amazing for the Suns so far. I don't think they're a team that should necessarily buy. They don't really have the assets to buy. Maybe they are a team that adds a piece or two. Obviously, the Jimmy Butler stuff, we'll see what happens with that. But maybe, I don't know. I think I'll just throw them into ride the ship right now. I don't know the moves they can make right now to get their team better. But obviously, if Jimmy Butler comes around, you'd be a lot more happy. I'm just not sure right now. I think that Nick Richards probably is the best they can do. Miami Heat are a team that I believe should 100% sell. I don't think it should just be Jimmy Butler as well. You have a guy like Terry Rozier on that team, I believe should also be moved. It's going to be tough to gauge how many first round picks they can get with Terry Rozier and Jimmy Butler combined, but hopefully it's more than two because this Miami Heat team has a solid young core right now. Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, Khalil Ware, Tyler Hero, even Bam Adebayo if you want to count it. I think the Heat have a direction. It's just really time to move on from these older guys. The Timberwolves should definitely field offers for Julius Randle at this point. I don't think that he's a terrible player, but the fit in Minnesota is just not working right now. They need someone who could spread the floor a lot better, can also open up more lanes for Anthony Edwards. I wonder between the T-Wolves and the Nets, who would say no for a Cam Johnson, Julius Randle type swap? I know there'd be more stuff involved with it, but those being the two main pieces, I'm interested. The New Orleans Pelicans are also a team I think should field offers. CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, maybe even Zion Williamson. They have guys that can garner value on the trade market right now. I think they're a team that should buy into their young core of Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, Yves Missi. I think it's just time to get out with the old and get in with the new. Maybe this is a hot take, but I think the Milwaukee Bucks should also buy at this year's deadline. I think the worst case scenario for this team is if they lose in the first round again and we start to get these Giannis and Dame questions during the offseason, whether or not they request a trade, whether they might not resign with this team. I think you need to add pieces to make Giannis happy because as long as Giannis is on that team, they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to try to compete for a championship. The Knicks are a team that can definitely add a piece or two. Similar to the Boston Celtics, they need another wing defender or even a wing shooter off the bench. I don't know exactly who that can be, but you have the Mitchell Robinson contract. You have some pieces that you're able to move. I'd like to be able to see who they can get. The 76ers are a very interesting team. I think for right now, I'll throw them into the field offers. And it might not just be, obviously not for the top guys like Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Who knows? Maybe somebody can offer on Paul George. I doubt it. But even aside from him, they have a guy in Gershon Yabusele who's on a one-year deal, who the 76ers do not have bird rights on him. So at the end of the season, it's basically guaranteed Gershon Yabusele is not going to be a Philadelphia 76er. If they truly believe they cannot make a push this season, maybe it's best to trade Yabusele, get some assets back, so in the offseason they just don't lose them for nothing. The 76ers are definitely in an interesting position. I think for right now, they should field some offers for guys like Paul George and Gershon Yabusele. The Detroit Pistons are next. They're also a very interesting team. I mean, they're probably in between ride the ship or buy. I've seen the Brandon Ingram rumors to Detroit. It's interesting. I definitely don't like it as much as other people do. I think he can be a guy that can get the ball out of Cade Cunningham's hands, be able to lift the pressure of the offense off of Cunningham just a little bit. Do I think they should buy, though, and try to get that Brandon Ingram type of guy? Or should they ride the ship? I think I'll throw them into buy. I think getting Brandon Ingram, like I said before, taking the offensive load off of Cade Cunningham can help a lot. Zach LaVine, I don't really think they should aim for because I like developing Jaden Ivey. But Brandon Ingram could definitely be interesting. Maybe even Cam Johnson as well. The Nets have been sellers since last year's offseason when trading away Mikal Bridges. The Spurs are also a team that I think, interestingly, I am going to throw into the field offers tier. Not going to be for the top guys in Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, maybe not even Chris Paul. There is one guy off the bench, and Keldon Johnson, I believe they should maybe look to trade. I don't think Keldon Johnson's a bad player, but in this Spurs offense where they like to move the ball, they like to spread it to the corners, hit Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson is kind of a ball stopper. Sometimes he doesn't make the extra pass, sometimes he just tries to take the offense on his own. And I think for the long run, especially this season, if the Spurs are going to try to make that play and push, maybe it's time to potentially move on from a guy like Keldon Johnson. I'm not sure though, that's just my opinion. The Atlanta Hawks could potentially have been a team that I would say could buy at this year's deadline, but after Jalen Johnson got hurt, I don't think this team's going to have too much aspiration for the rest of the season. Maybe they can be a playoff team. There's absolutely no way they win a round one game. They had Jalen Johnson, maybe could have looked for Brandon Ingram type of trade, both without Jalen Johnson. I just don't see it. They should ride the ship. Same thing with the Charlotte Hornets, honestly, with Brandon Miller being out for this season. I think if this team was a playing level team, we could see them at the similar level like the Detroit Pistons, but they traded their big contracts already. I don't really see any moves that could get them better or get them even more cap space. The Bulls, though, are definitely a team I'm confident to throw into that sale. Whether it's Zach LaVine, Vucevic, or maybe even both, they should try to get those guys off their team at least at the trade deadline. We saw it happen last time when they kept a guy into the offseason in Alex Caruso. You did not get the same value you could have got if you just traded him at the deadline. Don't make the same mistake. I think the Trailblazers are also a team I could see selling at this year's deadline. I think out of every team under here, it might be the hardest to sell their guys because they paid Jeremy Grant so much money. They paid DeAndre Ayton so much money. I just don't think they're worth their money value right now. You'd love to clear up some minutes for Donovan Clingan, but kind of threw yourself into the own hole by trading for these guys. You thought you could recoup their value, but it just hasn't really happened. I also think the Sacramento Kings should buy at this year's deadline. You could maybe say sell if you want to get rid of De'Aaron Fox, but I think the worst case scenario for this team, they get rid of De'Aaron Fox, they retool. They do not rebuild. You still have Sabonis, you still have DeMar DeRozan. If they buy and end up getting a Cam Johnson, which they can, like that a lot for the Sacramento Kings. The OKC Thunder are missing another ball handler / scorer off the bench right now. Cason Wallace could have been that team's backup point guard. He's kind of a shooting guard right now, plays a lot more off the ball. I think if they look for a guy in this year's trade deadline that can come off the bench, maybe even a Colin Sexton, be a scorer off the bench while Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't there, I'd like it a lot for them. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards. They're definitely a team that's going to be selling at this year's deadline. Jonas Valanciunas, Kyle Kuzma, Malcolm Brogdon, maybe even Jordan Poole, all four guys that should not be on this team at the end of the deadline. Kyle Kuzma has been pretty unfortunate. This has probably been his worst year in the NBA, just not shooting the ball well, scoring nearly 8 points less per game than last season. But it's kind of his fault because he's the one who said he was committed to Washington. Shouldn't have said that one. Grizzlies, they're definitely an interesting team because they have 13 value rotational guys. Obviously, you can't play 13 guys, but if they consolidate some of those guys to maybe look to get a bigger name like Cam Johnson, I would like it a lot. And finally, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're definitely an interesting team as well. I could see them riding the ship, not making any moves. But if Cam Johnson is available and they're able to put him at that small forward position to complete the starting lineup of Garland, Mitchell, Johnson, Mobley, and Jared Allen, I think that team could be potentially the championship favorites. They're really missing that wing piece right now. LeVert is solid off the bench. Strus is questionable. Dean Wade is questionable at that 3 position. I think getting Cam Johnson could really tie this team together. That's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like and subscribe. Go into the description to submit your video ideas, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.